Joe, how would you rate her first season here in Indy Next?
Overall, if I had to rate her season, I'll give it between a 6 and a 7. There's a lot of pressure, I think, on Jamie Chadwick because she is the only W Series champion. We know there's a huge difference in the car she's used to, those tattoos cars versus the Indy Next car. When we talked to Linus Lundqvist a couple of years ago and talked about Jamie Chadwick, what's the biggest challenge going from those tattoos cars to the Indy Next cars, he explained it's almost like a reverse driving rather than trying to be smooth and steady. You got to be aggressive because these cars are tricky to handle. So we knew Jamie Chadwick had that learning curve, but also we know there's several other drivers that had that learning curve, and I think those drivers show they could get a little bit on pace a little bit faster. Jamie Chadwick, great effort on her this year. I think, overall, this is a season where she has to be proud, I think, of what she had done this year with the steps. Could she have done a bit more? Oh, yes, definitely. But we didn't see her just struggling at every track. I think overall she did a pretty fair job. And the big thing, when we talked to her in Portland, she was enjoying her time here. She was having fun, getting to interact with the drivers, the fans, the paddock, how it's a much more open environment compared to what she's used to, and just racing in the United States, including, we talked to her right after she'd done an oval race, a night race. She seems to be overall pretty excited about potentially coming back in 2024.
I think next season is going to be, assuming she does have the opportunity to come back, that's when you want to see those results take a step forward and certainly improve there, particularly on the ovals. And I know there's only a couple on the Indy Next schedule. I will continue to fight for saving the Freedom 100. I think it's an absolute crime that race is not back yet on the Indy Next schedule. But, I think for all the young drivers, not just Jamie Chadwick, but any young drivers trying to work their way up the road to Indy ladder, I know we have this problem in the main IndyCar series too, but how are we going to teach these drivers how to race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on a 2.5-mile oval if we don't have hardly any ovals in Indy Next or in some of the lower series on the road to Indy? So that's not just something I think Jamie Chadwick could benefit from. I think everybody in the series could benefit from having a couple more ovals in Indy Next. So we'll see if that comes to fruition next year as well. I certainly would love to see that. But let's get back to Jamie Chadwick here now, Joe. You had an opportunity to talk with her in Portland. As you mentioned, she expressed the enjoyment of racing here in the United States and wanting to come back. However, the news of her return has kind of been thrown up in the air with the recent news that the DHL sponsorship that has been a long partner of Andretti Autosport, they just confirmed that will be ending, or I guess has ended, with the IndyCar season wrapping up here at the end of 2023. They've been with Andretti since 2011. However, they haven't been in victory lane since 2018 in the finale at Sonoma when Ryan Hunter-Reay was in that car. He was in the car until 2021. Then Roman Grosjean came in 22, and DHL expanded to include Chadwick's Indy Next program this year in 23. So, Joe, with that in mind, does DHL's departure from Andretti jeopardize Chadwick's return? And were you surprised by the news that we got this past week that DHL will not be returning to the team?
This definitely does jeopardize Jamie Chadwick's potential return in Indy Next for 2024. We know sponsorship is a big thing when it comes to landing a ride, no matter the series, whereas a Road to Indy series, IndyCar itself, other forms of motorsports, sponsorship money does the talking now. Jamie Chadwick, I think, similar to how you mentioned about Tony Bredegar, could be very marketable. Jamie Chadwick being W Series champion, big following, I think she could be very marketable to sponsorships. With that said, though, I was, to be honest, not surprised to see DHL leave. DHL, their long tenure with Andretti Autosport, started off great, but then to think that after Ryan Hunter-Reay's last win, only 3 podium finishes. With Roman Grosjean coming into that car, the 28 DHL car, we weren't coming in thinking this is a guy that needs more time, maybe get some podiums. This is a driver we anticipate to go out there, get podiums, get wins, contend for a championship. Didn't work out that first season. Okay, maybe it was just a little bit too much of a change the second year. And I think at this point, this is probably when DHL was starting to wonder, look, we've been with Andretti this long. Our longtime driver, Ryan Hunter-Reay, is gone. You brought in a former F1 driver who did really good at Dale Coyne Racing. Why are we not seeing the results? It looked promising at the very beginning of the season, but then it went downhill, and we know the mess that season was between Grosjean and Andretti Autosport. And I think, unfortunately, with that mess we were seeing there, Jamie Chadwick doing, I would say, about average, maybe a little above average when it came to Indy Next. I think DHL decided, you know what, we're going to look for new opportunities. And of course, other teams are going to try to lure us, look what we could do in IndyCar. Because at the end of the day, for DHL, this was a business decision. You can't go this long with a great sponsor like DHL, which also has a presence internationally in F1, and expect them to stick around when you're not bringing them podiums consistently. You're not bringing them wins, and they're not seeing their driver contending for a championship because they want to see the DHL uniform up there on the podium and the newspaper everywhere. They weren't getting that, and I just think it's unfortunate that the timing of DHL's partnership ending with Andretti. Jamie Chadwick, I do believe she could potentially find some new sponsorship to return back, but now that luxury of having DHL right there doesn't appear to be the case anymore.